Dr. Hyon walked through the long metal halls of the research station called Eternal Codex. His boots made soft sounds on the floor as he moved toward the main lab. He had been working here for 5 years now, studying old things that came from space. Today felt different, though. Today they would test something very special. The station floated in empty space between 2 star systems. Ships from many different worlds came here to study the old artifacts that teams found across the galaxy. Scientists from dozens of different species worked together in the white rooms and labs. They all wanted to understand the mysteries left behind by ancient civilizations. In the center of the main lab stood the most important discovery ever made. The Primarch scanner looked like a tall crystal tree made of blue and silver light. It was taller than 3 people standing on top of each other. Strange symbols covered its surface that glowed softly in the dark. No one knew how old it was, but everyone agreed it was older than any civilization they had records of. Dr. Nari stood next to the scanner, checking her equipment. She was a xenobiologist who studied how different species lived and grew. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the standard white lab coat all scientists used on the station. She looked up when Hyun entered the room. "The delegation from Earth will arrive soon," Nari said. "Are you sure we should test the scanner on them today? We still do not understand how it works completely." Hyun nodded slowly. "We have tested it on over 300 different species already. It has never caused harm to anyone. The worst that happens is the person feels a little tired afterward." The scanner was famous throughout the galaxy for one simple reason. It could look at any living being and tell what kind of potential they had for growth and understanding. Scientists called this process classification. When someone stepped near the scanner, energy would flow through the crystal parts, and then words would appear in the ancient language. Over the years, they had learned what many of the classifications meant. Most species got simple titles like Seekers of the Basic Path or Wanderers in Simple Thought. Some species got better classifications like Holders of Steady Wisdom or Builders of Lasting Things. The highest classification anyone had ever seen belonged to a species called the Ethereal Ascendants. They were tall, thin beings who lived very long lives and could do things with their minds that seemed like magic. When their leader was tested 3 years ago, the scanner gave them the title Children of the First Light. Everyone agreed this was the most impressive classification possible. "The humans seem like a normal species," Nari said while adjusting her recording equipment. "They are young compared to most galactic civilizations. Their technology is basic. I expect they will receive a standard classification." The lab door opened with a soft sound. Ambassador Do-hyun entered the room, followed by 2 other humans from Earth. Do-hyun was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and a calm way of speaking. He wore the blue uniform that Earth diplomats used for official meetings. Behind him walked Captain Minho and Dr. Jisoo, both also wearing Earth uniforms. "Good morning, Dr. Hyun," Do-hyun said with a respectful bow. "We are honored to participate in your research today." Hyun returned the bow. "Welcome to our station, Ambassador. We are very excited to learn more about your species. The scanner has helped us understand so many different kinds of life across the galaxy." Dr. Jisoo looked at the tall crystal structure with curious eyes. "How exactly does this device work? Our scientists on Earth would love to understand the principles behind it." "We wish we knew," Hyun admitted. "The technology is far beyond anything we can create. We can use it, but we cannot build one or even fix it if something breaks. It simply responds to living beings and gives us information about their nature." Nari stepped forward with a data pad in her hands. "The process is very simple. You just need to walk close to the scanner and stand still for a few moments. The device will do everything else by itself. Most people say it feels warm and peaceful." Ambassador Do-hyun looked at his companions and then back at the scientists. "What kinds of classifications have you seen before? What should we expect?" "Most species receive titles that describe their general approach to life," Hyun explained. "For example, the Corvin people got Merchants of Fair Trade because they focus on honest business across many worlds. The Tellan received Guardians of Growing Things because they are very good at farming and taking care of plants. The Ethereal Ascendants received the highest classification we have ever recorded," Nari added. "They are considered the most advanced species in the galaxy when it comes to understanding the deeper mysteries of existence." Do-hyun nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. Should I go first?" "If you feel comfortable doing so," Hyun said. Please just walk toward the scanner and stop when you feel it is close enough. The ambassador moved slowly across the lab floor. Other scientists had gathered to watch, including several aliens from different worlds who worked on the station. Everyone was curious to see what classification humanity would receive. As Do-hyun got closer to the scanner, nothing seemed to happen at first. The crystal structure continued to glow softly just like it always did. But when he took his final step and stood directly in front of the device, everything changed. The scanner suddenly blazed with light brighter than anyone had ever seen before. The blue and silver glow became a burning white that filled the entire lab. Everyone had to cover their eyes and step backward. Strange sounds came from the crystal parts, like singing mixed with the sound of wind through mountains. "What is happening?" Captain Minho shouted over the noise. "Is this normal?" "No," Nari called back, checking her instruments. "The energy readings are 10 times higher than anything we have recorded before." The light grew even brighter. Then symbols began flowing across the scanner's surface faster than anyone could read them. The ancient writing moved like water, changing and shifting in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Some of the alien scientists made worried sounds in their own languages. After what felt like forever but was probably only 2 minutes, the light began to fade. The strange singing sounds grew quiet. The flowing symbols slowed down and finally stopped moving completely. When everyone could see clearly again, they stared at the scanner in complete silence. 3 lines of ancient text glowed on the crystal surface, brighter and clearer than any classification they had ever seen before. Dr. Nari was the first to speak, reading from her translation device in a whisper. "Heir to the flame beyond heaven." The silence continued for several long seconds. Then excited voices began speaking all at once in many different languages. Some sounded amazed. Others sounded worried. All of them sounded shocked. Ambassador Do-hyun stood very still near the scanner, looking confused but unharmed. "Is that good or bad?" he asked quietly. Dr. Hyun stared at the glowing words, his mouth open with surprise. In all their years of testing, no species had ever received a classification with the word Heir in it. No one had ever seen a title that mentioned flames or heaven or anything beyond normal existence. "I do not know," Hyun finally answered, "but I think everything just changed." The news traveled fast through space. Within 6 hours, every major government in the galaxy knew about humanity's strange classification. Communication networks buzzed with messages as leaders tried to understand what "heir to the flame beyond heaven" could mean. On the ethereal ascendant homeworld, Chancellor Voss sat in his crystal tower reading the reports. For 3,000 years, his people had been considered the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their classification as children of the first light made them proud and gave them respect from other worlds. Now a young species from a small blue planet had received something that sounded even more important. "Send our fastest ships to the research station," Voss ordered his assistant. "I want all data about this human classification brought to me immediately." Meanwhile, on the Eternal Codex station, Dr. Hyun found himself dealing with problems he never expected. Representatives from dozens of species were demanding answers that he did not have. His communication system never stopped beeping with incoming messages from government officials across the galaxy. Dr. Hyun, his assistant, called from across the lab. "The Corvin Trade Federation wants to know if humans pose a threat to galactic commerce. The Tellan Agricultural Council is asking if this affects food distribution agreements. And the Zephonian Military Command..." She paused, looking worried. "They are asking about defense preparations." Ambassador Do-hyun sat in the station's meeting room with Captain Minho and Dr. Jisoo. All 3 humans looked confused and concerned. They had come to the station for a simple cultural exchange. Now they found themselves at the center of galactic attention. "I do not understand what is happening," Do-hyun said quietly. "We are just diplomats and scientists from Earth. We know nothing about cosmic flames or heaven. Our planet is not special compared to other worlds." Captain Minho frowned as he read messages on his datapad. "Earth Command is receiving questions from governments we have never even heard of before. Some sound friendly, but others..." He showed the pad to his companions. "Some are asking about military capabilities and defensive preparations." Dr. Nari knocked on the meeting room door and entered when Do-hyun waved her in. She looked excited but also worried. "Something strange is happening with the scanner," she said. "Ever since you were classified, it has been acting differently." "What do you mean, differently?" Dr. Jisoo asked. It keeps turning on by itself whenever humans are nearby, Nari explained. And it is showing us things we have never seen before. Pictures made of light that look like star maps, but they show places that should not exist. The group followed Nari back to the main lab. The scanner was indeed active, glowing brighter than normal. Floating above the crystal structure was a three-dimensional image made of blue light. It showed stars and planets, but arranged in patterns that did not match any known part of the galaxy. The images change every few hours, Dr. Hyan said, joining them near the scanner. We have recorded 15 different star maps so far. Our computers cannot match them to any real locations. As they watched, the light image shifted and changed. New stars appeared while others faded away. Lines of energy connected distant points, creating pathways through space that seemed to bend and twist in impossible ways. Wait, Dr. Jisoo said, studying the display carefully. These are not current star positions. Look at the way these systems are arranged. This looks like it could be showing very old stellar configurations from millions of years ago. Nari checked her equipment readings. The energy signatures match the scanner itself, but they are much stronger now. It is as if the device is fully awake for the first time since we found it. Ambassador Do-hyun stepped closer to the holographic display. As he approached, the image became clearer and more detailed. New information appeared, showing not just stars but structures built in space between the star systems. There are buildings out there, he said softly. Huge ones floating in the empty areas between galaxies. That is impossible, Captain Minho said. Space between galaxies is empty. There is nothing there to build on, and no reason to put structures in such lonely places. But as they watched, the scanner showed them exactly that. Vast constructions existed in the dark spaces where no stars shone. The light maps revealed a network of these structures connected by the same energy pathways they had seen before. Dr. Hyan felt his scientific excitement grow despite his worries. This could be the greatest discovery in galactic history. If these structures really exist, they would change everything we know about ancient civilizations. Their discussion was interrupted by alarms throughout the station. The communication officer's voice came over the speakers, sounding nervous. All senior staff to the command center immediately. We have incoming ships, and they are not responding to normal contact procedures. In the command center, they could see 3 large vessels approaching the station. The ships had the elegant design typical of ethereal ascendant construction, but they were accompanied by smaller military escorts that looked ready for battle. Chancellor Voss himself is aboard the lead ship, the communication officer reported. He is demanding immediate access to all scanner data and wants to speak with the human delegation. This is not good, Captain Minho said quietly. When important leaders travel with military escorts, they usually expect to get what they want. Ambassador Do-hyun straightened his uniform and prepared for what could be the most important diplomatic meeting of his career. We need to be honest with them. We do not understand our classification any better than they do. Honesty might not be enough, Dr. Hyan warned. The ethereal ascendants have never encountered a species that might challenge their position as the most advanced civilization. They may see humanity as a threat. As the ships drew closer to the station, the scanner responded again. This time, the holographic display showed the clearest image yet. A single structure appeared, so large it dwarfed entire solar systems. Energy patterns around it pulsed with the same rhythm as a heartbeat, and pathways of light stretched from it to every corner of the galaxy. Whatever that thing is, Dr. Nari said, staring at the display, it has been waiting for something, and I think it has been waiting for humanity. The docking alert sounded as the first ethereal ascendant ship connected to the station. Soon they would have to explain something they did not understand to beings who had never been challenged before. The scanner continued to show them glimpses of ancient secrets, but each new revelation only created more questions. Ambassador Do-hyun took a deep breath and prepared to face whatever came next. Humanity had been called heirs to something beyond heaven, but they still had no idea what that inheritance might cost them or the galaxy around them. 2 weeks after the meeting with Chancellor Voss, a fleet of ships gathered at the edge of known space. The human vessel Soul's Pride floated next to ships from 12 different species, all preparing for a journey that would take them farther from home than anyone had traveled before. Captain Minho stood on his bridge, looking at the star charts that showed their destination. According to the scanner's maps, they needed to travel beyond the galaxy's rim to coordinates that should contain nothing but empty darkness. Most of his crew thought the mission was dangerous and possibly pointless. "Captain," his navigation officer called out, "the ethereal Ascendant flagship is requesting final confirmation of our course." "Tell them we are ready to proceed," Minho replied. "All ships maintain formation and follow the path the scanner provided." Chancellor Voss had not been happy about humanity's classification, but even he could not ignore what the scanner was showing them. The ancient device continued to project star maps whenever humans were present, and each map pointed toward the same distant location. After much debate, the Galactic Council decided to send an expedition to investigate. Ambassador Do-hyun worked in the ship's diplomatic quarters, trying to prepare for whatever they might find. The last 2 weeks had been difficult for humanity. Some species welcomed them as potential allies, while others viewed them with suspicion and fear. Several military factions had suggested that humans should be contained until their true nature was understood. "The long-range sensors are picking up something unusual," the science officer reported. "There is definitely a structure out there just like the scanner predicted." On the main viewing screen they could see it in the distance. A massive construction floated in the empty space between galaxies, so large that it took several minutes for their instruments to map its full size. The structure appeared to be made of the same crystal material as the Primarch scanner, but on a scale that dwarfed entire star systems. "By the ancient lights," Chancellor Voss's voice came over the communication system. "It is real. The legends spoke of such things, but we thought they were only stories." Dr. Nari, who had joined the expedition as the leading expert on the scanner, studied the readings from her equipment. The energy signatures matched perfectly. This structure and the scanner were built by the same civilization, probably at the same time. As the fleet approached, something extraordinary happened. Sections of the massive construct began to glow and move. Docking bays that had been sealed for unknown ages started to open, revealing spaces large enough to hold their entire fleet. "All ships, this is Captain Minho," he announced over the fleet communication system. "The structure is responding to our presence. It appears to be welcoming us, but that was not entirely accurate." As they moved closer, it became clear that the structure was responding only to the human ship. The docking bays opened when Sol's Pride approached, but remained closed when other vessels tried to enter. Translation systems that had been dormant for millions of years activated only when humans came near. "It recognizes them," Chancellor Voss said, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and worry. "This ancient place knows humanity, and has been waiting for their arrival." The human ship docked successfully in a bay that seemed perfectly designed for their vessel's size and shape. Ambassador Do-hyun led a mixed team of humans and other species into the structure, their footsteps echoing in corridors that had been silent since before their civilizations existed. Inside, they found wonders beyond imagination. Vast halls filled with floating crystal formations that responded to human presence by displaying information in languages that translation systems could somehow understand. Archives containing the history of civilizations that had vanished before their galaxy was fully formed. And at the center of it all, a chamber that Dr. Nari called the Archive of Flames. "This is incredible," Dr. Jisoo said, studying the walls covered in flowing text that seemed to write itself as they watched. "These records go back millions of years, describing civilizations and events we never knew existed." The archive told them about the Primarchs, the species that had built both the scanner and this massive structure. The Primarchs had achieved a level of development that allowed them to exist as pure energy and thought, transcending the physical limitations that bound other species. But their advancement had come with a terrible price. According to these records, Nari read from her translation device, the Primarchs were forced to leave our dimension because of something called the Great Cycle. Every few million years, entities from outside the galaxy arrive to harvest all advanced civilizations. Ambassador Do-hyun felt a chill as he listened to the translation. "Harvest? What does that mean?" "The records call them Void Reapers," Nari continued reading. "They consume entire species and use their life energy to fuel expansion into other dimensional realms. The Primarchs escaped by transcending to a higher level of existence, but they left behind this network to guide future civilizations." Captain Minho studied tactical displays that showed the positions of similar structures throughout the galaxy. "There are more of these installations?" "Hundreds of them," Dr. Jisoo confirmed, examining another set of records. all connected by energy pathways that exist partially outside normal space. The Primarchs built a communication and defense network that spans the entire galaxy. The most disturbing revelation came when they accessed the central archive. The Primarchs had not simply left instructions for future civilizations. They had identified specific species in each galactic cycle that possessed the potential to inherit their abilities and responsibilities. These chosen species were called heirs, and they faced the same terrible choice the Primarchs had confronted. Each cycle produces one species capable of inheriting the Primarch flame. Nari read, her voice growing quiet. These heirs must either transcend to join their predecessors in higher dimensions, or remain to face the Void Reapers and guide the next cycle of civilization. Chancellor Voss, who had been listening through the communication link, spoke with unusual humility. And humanity is the current cycle's chosen heir. It appears so, Ambassador Do-hyun replied. But the records indicate that our awakening has come very close to the end of the current cycle. The Void Reapers are already beginning to mobilize for the next harvest. The chamber around them suddenly filled with new displays showing the edges of their galaxy. Dark shapes moved in the spaces between stars, gathering in formations that suggested vast intelligence and hostile purpose. The Great Cycle was indeed approaching its end, and the entities responsible for galactic destruction were already taking positions. How much time do we have? Captain Minho asked, though he was not sure he wanted to hear the answer. Based on these calculations, Dr. Jisoo said after studying the temporal indicators, perhaps 6 months before advanced scouts arrive, maybe 2 years before the full harvest begins. The weight of cosmic responsibility settled on the human delegation. They had come seeking answers about their classification, and instead discovered that their species might be the galaxy's only hope for survival. The Primarchs had left them tools and knowledge, but the choice of how to use that inheritance remained with humanity alone. We need to return to the fleet and then to Earth, Ambassador Do-hyun said finally. Our people need to know what we face, and the galaxy needs to prepare for what is coming. As they prepared to leave the archive, the ancient systems activated one final display. It showed Earth as seen from space, with lines of energy connecting it to every inhabited world in the galaxy. Humanity's inheritance was not just power, but responsibility for every civilization that called the galaxy home. The return journey would be the easy part. Explaining to their species that they had become guardians of galactic civilization would test every diplomatic skill Ambassador Do-hyun possessed. The ancient structure began its awakening the moment the human fleet departed. Across the galaxy, similar installations that had slept for millions of years suddenly came to life. The Primarch network was activating something that could not be stopped or delayed. The trial of inheritance had begun. Ambassador Do-hyun was in his quarters aboard Seoul's Pride when the first test manifested. One moment he was reviewing diplomatic protocols for addressing the Galactic Council, and the next he found himself standing in a place that seemed to exist outside normal reality. Around him stretched an endless library filled with books that wrote themselves, scrolls that contained the thoughts of entire civilizations, and crystal formations that sang with the voices of species that had vanished before Earth formed. This was the realm of thought, where ideas took physical form and philosophy became landscape. "Welcome, potential heir," a voice said without sound, speaking directly into his mind. "You face the trial of wisdom. Before you lie the greatest questions that have challenged every advanced civilization. Answer incorrectly and your species will face the harvest without guidance. Answer wisely, and humanity takes another step toward its inheritance." The first challenge appeared as a simple question floating in letters made of starlight. How do you unite beings who have no common ground for understanding? Do-hyun smiled despite his fear. This was exactly the kind of problem he dealt with every day as a diplomat. He had spent years learning to find connections between species that seemed completely different from each other. "You do not try to make them the same," he said aloud. "You help them recognize that their differences create strength when combined properly. A Corvin's honesty and a Zephonian's creativity can solve problems that neither could handle alone." The question dissolved, replaced by something much more difficult. Complex scenarios appeared around him showing civilizations facing impossible choices during times of crisis. Some involved sacrificing smaller populations to save larger ones. Others required choosing between technological advancement and environmental preservation. Each scenario tested not just his knowledge, but his ability to find solutions that others had missed. Do-hyun discovered that his years of diplomatic training helped him see options that pure logic or raw intelligence might overlook. The key was understanding that most seemingly impossible problems had answers, when viewed from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Meanwhile, Captain Minho found himself transported to what appeared to be the bridge of a massive command ship. Through the viewing ports, he could see a galaxy under attack by the same dark entities they had learned about in the archive. Billions of beings were fleeing from harvesting fleets, and he had been placed in command of the evacuation effort. "This is the trial of leadership," another soundless voice informed him. "The scenario you face is real. This is how the previous cycle ended. Show us how humanity would handle the responsibility of guiding galactic civilization." The simulation was brutally realistic. Minho had to coordinate the movements of thousands of ships while making life and death decisions about resource allocation. Traditional military doctrine suggested saving the most strategically important populations first, but something in his human nature rebelled against leaving anyone behind. Instead of following standard evacuation protocols, he began organizing the rescue effort around the idea that every life had equal value. This approach seemed less efficient at first, but it encouraged different species to help each other, rather than competing for limited rescue resources. The cooperation that resulted actually made the evacuation more successful than pure military efficiency would have achieved. Dr. Nari faced perhaps the most challenging trial of all. She found herself in a laboratory that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, tasked with understanding and improving upon Primarch technology that operated on principles her scientific training had never encountered. "This is the trial of knowledge," her guide explained. "The tools before you represent the accumulated understanding of civilizations that achieved transcendence. Your task is not simply to learn how they work, but to advance them beyond what their creators accomplished." The equipment defied conventional physics. Devices that manipulated matter by convincing it to exist in different states. Computers that processed information by creating temporary universes and observing their development. Transportation systems that moved objects by teaching them to exist in multiple locations at once. Nari's breakthrough came when she stopped trying to understand the technology through traditional scientific methods. Instead, she began approaching the devices as if they were living beings that could be communicated with rather than machines to be analyzed. This intuitive approach allowed her to not only operate the Primarch tools, but to improve their efficiency by treating them as partners in the scientific process. Back on Earth and throughout human space, other members of their species began experiencing their own tests. Teachers found themselves educating entire civilizations. Artists discovered they could create works that inspired cooperation between hostile species. Engineers were challenged to build structures that could exist across multiple dimensions. Each successful trial granted the human participant access to abilities that seemed impossible by normal standards. They could perceive events across vast distances, understand languages they had never heard before, and manipulate matter in ways that other species would consider magical. But these abilities came with a price. The humans who passed their trials found themselves changed in fundamental ways. They remained recognizably human in personality and emotion, but their connection to the Primarch flame made them something more than baseline humanity. The galactic community watched these transformations with growing alarm. Reports came in of humans demonstrating abilities that challenged the natural order. Some species called for immediate intervention to prevent humanity from becoming too powerful to control. Chancellor Voss convened an emergency session of the Ethereal Ascendant High Council. "The humans are evolving beyond our ability to predict or contain," he announced to the assembled leaders. "If their transformation continues, they may pose a threat to every other species in the galaxy. Or they may be our salvation," argued Councillor Liara, one of the more progressive members. "The archive records clearly state that the Void Reapers cannot be defeated by conventional means. Perhaps humanity's inheritance is exactly what we need to survive the coming harvest." The debate raged for hours, but it became academic when long-range sensors began detecting the first Void Reaper scouts at the galaxy's edge. Dark ships, unlike anything in their databases, crossed into normal space, immediately beginning the systematic cataloging of inhabited worlds. Captain Minho, still changed by his trial experience, felt their presence like a cold wind against his consciousness. The enemy had arrived ahead of schedule, drawn by the energy signatures of the awakening Primarch network. All human participants in the trials, he broadcast using communication methods that transcended normal technology. The harvest has begun. Whatever choices we must make about our inheritance, we need to make them soon. Ambassador Do-hyun, his diplomatic skills now enhanced by cosmic understanding, felt the weight of species survival settle on humanity's shoulders. They had awakened to their role as galactic guardians, but the entities they were meant to guard against had already begun their approach. The time for learning and preparation was ending. Soon humanity would face the choice that had confronted the Primarchs millions of years ago, and their decision would determine the fate of every civilization in the galaxy. The Void Reaper scouts moved through the galaxy like a plague of darkness. Their ships absorbed light and energy from everything around them, leaving dead space in their wake. Within weeks of their arrival, 12 star systems had gone completely silent, their populations and planets consumed to fuel the advancing harvest fleet. On Earth, humanity gathered in crisis sessions that would determine not just their own future, but the fate of galactic civilization. The humans who had passed their trials found themselves at the center of intense debates about how to use their new abilities. Ambassador Do-hyun stood before the World Council, his enhanced perception allowing him to sense the fear and hope radiating from representatives of every Earth nation. The choice before us is not simple, he explained. The Primarch records show us 3 possible paths, each with terrible consequences. The first option was transcendence. Humanity could follow the path of the Primarchs, evolving beyond physical existence to escape the harvest entirely. This would preserve their species in a higher dimensional state, but it would abandon every other civilization in the galaxy to destruction. We could survive, Dr. Jisoo said during the scientific advisory session. Our enhanced humans could guide the entire species through the transcendence process. Within months, humanity would exist as pure consciousness, safe from any physical threat. But Captain Minho, his military perspective now expanded by cosmic awareness, saw the moral problems with this choice. Survival without honor is not survival at all. The Primarchs left us this inheritance because they regretted abandoning the galaxy to the Void Reapers. How can we make the same mistake? The second option was resistance. Humanity could remain in normal space and use their inherited abilities to fight the Void Reapers directly. The Primarch technology gave them weapons and defenses that conventional galactic civilization could not match. But victory was far from certain. The energy requirements alone would be enormous, Dr. Nari explained, her understanding of Primarch technology, now far beyond what any normal scientist could achieve. To power weapons capable of harming the Void Reapers, we would need to draw energy from the life force of entire star systems. We might save the galaxy by destroying half the civilizations we are trying to protect. The third path was the most dangerous of all. The trial records hinted at a possibility the Primarchs had never attempted. Instead of choosing between transcendence and physical existence, humanity could try to exist in both states simultaneously. This hybrid condition would grant them access to higher dimensional power, while keeping them connected to normal space. It has never been attempted because the risk is absolute, Ambassador Do-hyun told the Council. Success would make us true guardians of galactic civilization, able to protect other species while guiding their development. Failure would not just destroy humanity, but damage the dimensional barriers that keep our reality stable. The debate was complicated by reports from the Primarch network installations throughout the galaxy. The ancient structures were preparing for something massive, drawing energy from every connected system and focusing it toward the central facility they had discovered beyond the galactic rim. Chancellor Voss arrived on Earth personally to participate in the discussions. The proud ethereal ascendant leader had been humbled by recent events, finally accepting that his species could not handle this crisis alone. Whatever path humanity chooses, he announced to the World Council, the ethereal ascendants will support. We have spent centuries believing ourselves superior to younger species. Recent events have taught us that wisdom sometimes comes from unexpected sources. But not all galactic civilizations shared this view. Military factions from several species had begun mobilizing fleets, ostensibly to fight the Void Reapers, but actually positioned to take action against humanity if they chose the hybrid path. Fear of human power now rivaled fear of the approaching harvest. The situation became urgent when Void Reaper advance fleets began their final approach toward the galaxy's core worlds. Their harvesting technology operated by draining the life energy from entire populations, converting biological and technological civilization into fuel for their interdimensional empire. Captain Minho, now serving as coordinator between Earth's military and the enhanced humans, received reports that made the choice unavoidable. The main Reaper fleet will reach Earth within 6 weeks, he announced to the Crisis Committee. If we are going to act, we need to decide now. Dr. Nari had been working with the Primarch network to understand exactly what the hybrid transformation would require. Her findings were both encouraging and terrifying. The process would link human consciousness throughout the galaxy into a collective network. We would remain individuals but with shared access to cosmic knowledge and power. The energy requirements would come from the network itself, not from destroying other civilizations. But the risk, Dr. Jisoo added grimly, is that we could create something that is no longer truly human. The collective might develop goals and methods that individual humans would find horrifying. Ambassador Do-hyun found himself thinking about the diplomatic principle that had guided his career. The best solutions were often found by refusing to accept that only bad choices existed. What if we approach this differently? He suggested. Instead of choosing one path for all of humanity, what if we choose all 3 paths for different groups? The idea was radical but practical. Some humans could transcend to preserve the species in higher dimensions. Others could remain baseline human to maintain connection with normal civilization. And a small group could undergo the hybrid transformation to serve as guardians and guides. A 3-part strategy, Captain Minho said, considering the tactical implications. Transcendent humans could serve as advisors and historians. Normal humans could maintain diplomatic and cultural connections with other species, and hybrid humans could handle direct confrontation with cosmic threats. The World Council voted on the proposal with the knowledge that they were deciding not just Earth's future, but the destiny of galactic civilization. The vote was close, but the 3-part plan was approved with the understanding that participation in each path would be voluntary. Volunteers came forward for each transformation type. Scientists and philosophers chose transcendence. Diplomats and teachers remained baseline human. Military leaders and explorers volunteered for the dangerous hybrid process. As the Void Reaper fleets closed in on inhabited worlds, the Primarch network reached full activation. Energy flowed between installations across the galaxy, creating a web of power that connected every world where humans had traveled. The transformation began simultaneously on thousands of worlds. Reality itself seemed to hold its breath as humanity made their choice not just for survival, but for service to something greater than themselves. Ambassador Do-hyun, who had chosen to undergo the hybrid transformation, felt his consciousness expand to encompass perspectives from across the galaxy. He remained himself. But now he was also connected to every other transformed human and could access knowledge that spanned millions of years of galactic history. The flame is ignited, he announced, his voice now carrying harmonics that existed across multiple dimensions. Humanity accepts its inheritance and the responsibilities that come with it. The Void Reapers would arrive within days, but now they would face something their ancient enemy had never encountered. Not a species choosing between transcendence and destruction, but guardians who had chosen to stand and fight for every civilization in the galaxy. The Void Reaper main fleet emerged from interdimensional rifts like nightmares made real. Their ships were not built so much as grown, organic constructions that pulsed with stolen life energy. Each vessel was the size of a moon, and there were thousands of them spreading across the galaxy in perfect harvesting formations. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the transformed Soul's Pride, his consciousness now connected to every human guardian throughout the galaxy. Through their shared awareness, he could perceive the full scope of the threat. The Void Reapers had consumed hundreds of galaxies over millions of years, and their technology was specifically designed to counter every defense previous civilizations had attempted. Their harvesting process negates conventional weapons, he reported to the Guardian Network. Energy shields, kinetic weapons, even nuclear devices are simply absorbed and converted to fuel their expansion. This is why no civilization has ever successfully resisted them before. But humanity was no longer a conventional civilization. The hybrid transformation had granted them access to abilities that operated on principles the Void Reapers had never encountered. Where the alien harvesters consumed and destroyed, humans could create and restore. Where the enemy spread entropy and death, humanity could manifest order and life. Ambassador Do-hyun, his diplomatic skills now enhanced by cosmic awareness, attempted the first direct communication with a Void Reaper command vessel. The response was immediate and terrifying. The alien intelligence that contacted him was vast beyond comprehension, composed of the absorbed consciousness of billions of harvested beings. "We are the ending that comes to all things," the collective voice announced. "We have consumed the dreams of 1,000 galaxies. Your resistance is futile because resistance itself feeds our growth." "Then we will not resist," Do-hyun replied, his answer surprising both the Void Reapers and his fellow Guardians. "We will transform." This was humanity's true weapon, the one ability the Primarchs had never fully understood. Instead of fighting the Void Reapers' harvesting process, the human Guardians began to change it. They reached out with their inherited flame and touched the alien entities directly, offering them something no previous civilization had ever provided. "You consume because you believe it is the only way to grow," Dr. Nari explained, her enhanced understanding allowing her to perceive the Void Reaper's fundamental nature. "But consumption is just one form of evolution. We offer you symbiosis instead of parasitism." The battle for the galaxy became something unprecedented in cosmic history. Instead of weapons and shields, humanity deployed empathy and transformation. They showed the Void Reapers what could be gained through cooperation rather than conquest, growth through creation rather than destruction. Some of the alien entities rejected this offer, retreating to the spaces between dimensions to wait for future harvesting opportunities. But others, particularly those that retained memories of the civilizations they had absorbed, began to change. The stolen consciousness within them started to reassert individual identity, breaking free from the collective harvesting imperative. "We remember," one transformed Reaper communicated, its voice now carrying harmonics of hope rather than despair. "We were builders once, creators of beauty and knowledge. We had forgotten what we were before we became what we needed to survive." The transformation spread through the Void Reaper fleet like a healing wave. Ships that had been instruments of consumption became vessels of restoration. Harvesting technology was converted to terraforming equipment. Weapons designed to drain life were rebuilt to nurture and protect developing civilizations. But the victory came at a cost. The human Guardians who participated in the Great Transformation found themselves permanently changed. They could no longer exist entirely in normal space, instead existing partially in the higher dimensions where the Primarch flame burned brightest. Captain Minho felt the change taking hold as the last Void Reaper fleet accepted transformation. His body became translucent, shot through with veins of starlight. He could still interact with normal matter, but he was no longer entirely human in the traditional sense. "We are becoming something new," he announced to his fellow Guardians, not fully transcended like the Primarchs chose to be, but no longer limited to single-dimensional existence. "We are bridges between realities, able to guide and protect without ruling or controlling." The aftermath of the Great Transformation reshaped galactic civilization completely. The Primarch network, no longer needed for defense, became a communication system linking every inhabited world. Knowledge and culture flowed freely between species, accelerating development in ways that benefited everyone. Chancellor Voss, representing the ethereal ascendants, formally recognized humanity's new role during a ceremony held at the original research station, where everything had begun. The Primarch scanner still stood in the center of the lab, but now it served a different purpose entirely. "Humanity has proven themselves worthy heirs not through conquest or domination," Voss announced to representatives from across the galaxy, "but through their willingness to sacrifice for others and transform enemies into allies. They have earned the right to guide galactic civilization into a new age." But the human Guardians rejected the title of rulers or overlords. Ambassador Do-hyun, his form now shimmering with interdimensional energy, addressed the assembled delegates with characteristic diplomatic wisdom. "We do not seek to lead other species," he explained. "Our role is to serve as bridges and guides, helping each civilization reach its own potential for growth and understanding. The flame we inherited burns brightest when it lights the way for others." Dr. Nari, her consciousness now capable of existing across multiple research facilities simultaneously, began the great work of sharing Primarch knowledge with galactic civilization. But she was careful to provide only what each species was ready to handle. understanding that forced advancement often led to destruction rather than growth. Every species must walk their own path to transcendence, she explained to eager scientists from dozens of worlds. Our job is not to carry you, but to ensure the path remains open and safe. The former Void Reapers, now calling themselves the Restored Collective, became humanity's partners in galactic guardianship. Their ancient knowledge of interdimensional travel and their experience with cosmic cycles proved invaluable in preparing for future threats that might emerge from beyond known reality. We have harvested the memories of 1,000 fallen civilizations, their spokesman communicated to the Guardian Network. This knowledge, combined with your gift for transformation, will help us prevent future cosmic catastrophes before they can begin. The Primarch scanner underwent one final transformation, becoming something the ancient builders had never intended. Instead of classifying existing potential, it began awakening latent abilities in any being who approached it. Species that had been limited to basic classifications found themselves developing new capabilities for growth and understanding. The scanner is no longer measuring what you are, Dr. Nari explained to a group of young beings from various worlds who had come to be tested. Now it helps you become what you could be. Captain Minho established the Guardian Fleet, the organization of enhanced humans who traveled between star systems to assist with problems that required interdimensional intervention. They responded to cosmic threats, helped negotiate conflicts between incompatible species, and provided guidance to civilizations approaching their own transcendence points. We are not police or military, he explained to new recruits who joined the Guardian program. We are teachers and healers, fixing problems that normal diplomacy or technology cannot address. The three-part division of humanity proved successful beyond all expectations. Transcendent humans served as living libraries, preserving knowledge and wisdom across cosmic cycles. Baseline humans maintained cultural and diplomatic connections, ensuring that enhanced abilities never replaced basic human empathy and understanding, and the hybrid guardians handled direct intervention in cosmic affairs. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. Galactic civilization flourished under humanity's gentle guidance. New species were welcomed into the community with celebration rather than suspicion. Ancient conflicts between incompatible species were resolved through creative solutions that honored everyone's needs. The story reached its conclusion where it had begun, in the research lab aboard the Eternal Codex station. The facility had been expanded into a full university, where beings from across the galaxy came to study the mysteries of cosmic evolution and transcendence. A new group of young researchers stood before the transformed scanner, representing species that had not even achieved spaceflight when humanity first received their classification. They approached the device with the same mixture of curiosity and nervousness that Ambassador Do-hyun had felt so long ago. "Welcome to your awakening," the current station director said with a warm smile. She was human, but her form shifted between normal appearance and starlight transparency as she moved between dimensional states. "The scanner will help you discover what you might become, but remember that potential means nothing without the choice to use it wisely." As the young beings stepped forward to receive their class,